Salutations, everyone. Welcome back to another Crusader Kings 3 guide. Today we're going to be talking about how to save the Abbasid Caliphate. So we're going to be the Caliph himself here. This guy, he's not a particularly great ruler at this period in time, but he's who starts at 867. So, before we get too far into it, I'm Lord Forwind, of course. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other guides. I do a lot of strategy guides. And I will timestamp various sections of this video so you can go to the description or the slider bar and find which section you're interested in watching. And I hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a comment. So, how are we going to save the Caliphate? Well, let's first glance at how to end the struggle. The Iranian intermezzo. This is the area that is involved with the struggle. It's not the only area we have to care for. There are several ways to end it. There is the concession, which basically over time the concession will build up. If it fills all the way, it will end. Meaning you have a time limit to save them. Stabilization is the other phase. So basically, you're almost always going to head into stability rather than concession. Now, how to end it? If you were trying to humiliate the Abbasids, you could found a new one, dominate it. If you were Iranian, you could rebuild the Iranian Persian. Iran and Persia are simultaneously named here. You get the title Persian even though you're Iranian. However, we need to renew it. Now, you can do this as any member of the dynasty, but it's easier to do as the actual ruler. And as you can see, there are a lot of benefits from doing so. How to end it? Okay, we have to get into the stabilization phase. We can't be on unrest. The problem is, it's probably going to take you a stabilization and then an unrest cycle back to stabilization before you would be able to do all the requirements below. If you're really good, you can do it in one, but it's slightly difficult. The hard ones here. Obviously, we start out with 2 done. This one, 50% of the involved counts, independent rulers, or direct vassals have to support you. This is a trait that is unique to this area. If they like you slightly. If they hate you, they really hate you. This does mean the rest of your subjects out here have to support you as well, which can get a little bit tricky as you start to expand, especially if they get involved at all. Thankfully, a lot of them out here don't care, but these ones in here, you've got to keep happy. Now, the next one's slightly more complex. No independent or involved interloper duke, meaning people who join, can have the detractor of the Caliphate, and currently there are 8 of them. You have to kind of figure out to some degree where they are. Thankfully, it does kind of show up on the map to some degree where you're going to likely have to deal with problems. The ones that are on your side, they don't show up on the map, nor do the ones that are entirely against you. These are the face, by and large. Now, the other one is no duke or higher has a non-Sunni faith. This involves you having to conquer some land out here that's held by, for example, a Hindu faith. So just be aware, these are the border you have to get to. You want to do it relatively quickly before the Hindus or any of the other faiths expand in this area as a large empire, because it becomes difficult. The benefit is if you can flip people to your side, you don't actually have to personally control, say, the Saffarids here, if you can flip them from a detractor to a supporter. If you sway them and stuff, you also have this option to join my side. If you find somebody who's a detractor, for example, this guy here, not that we can, and you become friends with them, diplomacy, opinion, you can flip them to your side. It means you don't have to conquer that land. After completing the struggle, with a good ending, they will automatically become your subject, which means it's very easy to pick up realms like this so long as you get them on your religion and on your side. Otherwise, Paragon of Virtual, and you have to completely control the Abbasids. This is where you have to worry about other areas. So, obviously, we control a decent amount of the Abbasids, but as you can see, we have a lot more. Out of which, the hardest is Egypt, the Tulunids. you're going to want to, at some point, subjugate them. However, let's talk about your starting situation and your opening moves to keep yourself stable. So at the beginning of the game, you've got 4 out of 5 of your acceptable domain holdings. You start with your capital in Samarra, and you also control Baghdad, both of which have decent development, as well as having unique buildings that give you huge bonuses, as well as development on their own. You start off as the largest empire in the game, although the Byzantines are probably stronger at the start. So just be aware that as good as you are, if the Byzantines come for you at the beginning, you might want to restart your run. Can be worth trying to sway them. I find they tend to leave you alone for quite a while. Now, you also start at war with a pretty nasty revolt. They have about equivalent troops to you. The problem is, and this is very frustrating, they have siege weapons. You do not. For some reason, at this point in time, your civilization has not discovered Oningers. Oningers is the first basic siege weapon, and you don't have it, meaning they're going to outsiege you, which makes this starting revolt a lot harder. You start off with a free army, which is really nice, and you should definitely assign somebody. Don't worry about this guy resenting you. He'll still fight just as well as you for you now. You start off with 1 men-at-arms, Mubarism. I don't know how you say that. Anyway, these are light infantry, but they're really good. They're on par with heavy. Thankfully, they're cheap. You're going to want to probably spend some of your starting money building them up, probably getting another regiment of them built up if you want to make this starting war easier. Other option, do something like bowmen, which you can easily raise all the way up as well. You don't want to use up all your money. Money is a bit hard to come by at the beginning, so what I did, probably not worth it. On the other hand, altogether, combined with my starting army, raise it all in Samarra, we've got a pretty good shot of wiping them out once this full army fully gathers. The problem is they'll run away. So they've got 2 lands here, and they'll siege this down. You want to stop this from being sieged down. Basically, you want to squash them whenever they start to siege. Problem is they're faster, so you might have to chase them around a bit, rush over to siege 1, counter it. You can take forts pretty quickly back as counter siege. You're going to want to do that. However, really all you need is a white piece, and a white piece isn't too far away. If you manage to siege down, say, the capital here, by and large, you'll get a white piece, and you should take it. Once you do, you can easily take this guy, either lock him up, imprison him, or just wait till he dies and get his next subject as a supporter of the Caliphate. Now, other things to note, you want to assign your illustrious regalia. The reason you want to do this, domain taxes, same faith, plus 10%, helps give you some money. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's enough. Plus, it makes people just get more piety, more prestige, more renown. It's worth throwing on there. Also, similar thing for your court, throw up your banners, etc. The big benefit you have here is you have the Spear of the Prophet, Clan Ruler of Same Faith, Opinion plus 5, Knights Up, Levy Reinforcement. It's one of the best pedestal artifacts in the game. Throw it down. In terms of your court, you've got an administrative court, which is actually fine at this point, because you'll get development as this builds up. You could switch to a scholarly one, but honestly, I recommend staying as admin. Getting development growth in your capital is worth it. You will have to change your court amenities, though. You don't want to be below your expected grandeur level. So, obviously there are different of these. I recommend out in decent fashion, and probably few servants to many servants, some servants. There's a good chance that you get schemed against, people try and murder you, challenge you for duels, so getting built up is good. Right now you want to be close. If you're slightly short, don't worry about it too much. You'll get other artifacts very quickly as the game goes on, plus events. You can stay above your baseline. You could spend a little bit more and go above it. If you do, I recommend doing the servants, because hostile scheme resistance, quite useful. However, if you do that, you would see that we're going to increase our court amenities by 3, combined with our other ones. We'll head to debt. That is not a problem. I want to repeat that. Going into debt is not a problem as these guys, especially early on. every time you go into debt, I tend to find 5 or 6 clan members, family members, people of my government showing up to give me money. I think I founded my entire empire off of this in my 3 runs, mainly from gifts. It's quite useful. So don't worry too much about going into debt. Obviously, if you get into an unsustainable debt cycle and you're losing like 50 gold a month, change things. But losing 1 or 2 gold a month, not a huge issue. So now we've started to stabilize. We have a legacy available. I recommend you're going to be able to afford 1, maybe 2. I recommend you start off with Ominous Reputation. Dread 15. Reason Dread is 15 is it affects the vassal's behavior towards you just enough that you can tend to prevent revolts and stuff. They'll get scared of you. If you don't have Dread, they won't be. Having high amounts of Dread can be bad as well. On the other hand, 15 by default is really good. The other option you could consider up here is Language Scholars. Minority Vassal Opinion up will help keep the disparate members of your empire happier with you. It's not really needed right now. I would go for Ominous, followed up by Language Scholar. There are other ones later on, like if you want to get into the whole eugenics type stuff down here. Blood is great for that. Kin can be useful if you want to improve your dynasty. Close Bonds, Dynasty Opinion up. Really good for helping keep your clan unified. By the way, if you haven't learned how to do clan management, go watch my clan management video, which I just put out recently. Should help a great deal with understanding what I'm talking about, because I'm not going to cover that here. Obviously, some of these other ones kind of useful as well, but the best starting one, in my opinion, and I've tested a lot of them, Ominous Reputation is the way to go. You'll get to the next level pretty quickly, probably Language Scholars. Minority Vassals, you have a lot of them, so keeping them happy is useful. After that, you can go wherever you want to go. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going too much into Guile, though, early on, because people may assassinate you, make claims, because your house unity isn't that good. In fact, it's quite terrible. Giving them better chance to schemes chance up, is a problem. On the other hand, Family Connection is but you won't get there during the struggle. If we were to look at our house, these are all our starting moves we have to make to keep our house intact. We're antagonistic, meaning if we die, our vassals will be divided. People dislike us, they may challenge us. You can organize for war, which might be useful here. Warlike, if they're fighting, they're going to be more or less likely to scheme at you. I would not recommend doing this unless you feel the need to get 1 marshal and a prowess, because they may decide to come after you to a claimant faction. Replacing the army with loyal officers, once you get enough prestige, worth doing because you will increase your men-at-arms damage by 8. You have 4 landed house members, so that's a big boost to your men-at-arms, especially since you're fighting at the beginning. Worth doing. On the other hand, we want to try and get this unity up as much as we can, so we're going to go steer house unity, steer towards harmonious, start off with that. Whoops. There's a double thing. First off, notify. Always worth doing. So we're making some progress in that direction. Next thing to do is find a member of your dynasty. And there should be one right here. This guy, however, is a detractor, so you may not want to use him. I'm trying to remember where your other landed dynasty member is. Well, this guy works. He's a half-brother and he's a supporter. Go to him, extol virtuousness, plus 12. You have to wait a little bit for piety. However, you get piety fairly quickly. Just because you're the leader of a religion. Once you do, though, get them working together. Other things to do, make sure that your tax is the way you want it to. Honestly, this ICWA tax grant, at this point, would probably swap it to basic taxes to get yourself more gold. I wouldn't ever do Zakat. Bukwata here is not bad if you're thinking people are unhappy. In fact, right now, it's basically the same as this, but you're going to have less men-at-arms damage. Your call if you want to win the first war with men-at-arms and lose a lot of money, or you want to swap to this and lose 0.3 less a month. Your call. Regardless, you want to switch away from the ICWA grant as soon as the war's over, because you don't want to be losing money. The other thing, and we can't do it at the moment because we are at war, is find and track down one of your subjects and appoint them the Vizier. Make sure you appoint the best Vizier candidate. That will get you another tax jurisdiction. Once you get a third one, because right now you have subjects that are not assigned to your tax collectors, you've got ones that are not assigned. You're losing out on a lot of money there. So once the war's over, you need you desperately need a Vizier to be able to tax. Once you do, your money problem should go away. As you can see, getting 3 here, if we were to swap away, that would get us more. Adding another one, another 3 or 4, you'd probably be positive or close to it on money. Okay, there are a couple other moves that you should make here. Going up here to the Armenian Principalities, you own this. This guy hates you. You want to try and get rid of this. Modify his contract. Get rid of his religious rights, lower his feudal taxes. That will make him like you more. Demand conversion. You can improve relations with him if you want to. I find he usually will accept the conversion. There we go. Now you've solved one of your major problems. You now have a large Ashari Muslim king on your side. He is the only king in your realm at this point. Having him as a thorn in your side is a problem. Now you can pretty much ignore him, or if you had a spare tax jurisdiction, you could grant him the religious one and have him conquer the area. He will, over time, I find, convert and conquer this region, which is quite useful, meaning you can pretty much ignore this area for the rest of the game. Make sure that you do transfer these vassals to the side. It does cost you a little house unity, but you want to keep this guy. As you can see, we've gone from 100 to negative 36. The odds of him causing trouble significantly reduced. Significantly. You could pardon this guy or you can lock him up, and that will change things as well. So the next thing to think about is trying to get more supporters. Right now you've got some detractors. If this guy dies over here in the Saffarids, which in my experience, he has a pretty good shot of doing so. His heir is a supporter. If you want to, murdering him, not the worst thing to do. You have a 95% chance of doing so from agents. Everybody hates him. One of the best schemes you can start is murdering this guy. If you do, this guy becomes a supporter and you don't have to worry about messing with this very large realm, trying to conquer it or install a supporter or anything. Just remove the problem. Afterwards, you want to start looking through your lands, finding people who are not supporters. I know this is slightly as we process forward, but you want to be doing this while you're winning the initial war. Find people who don't like you. For example, this guy. Go to him, sway him to your side, after you've murdered that guy, of course. Sway him to your side, ask him to join my side. Thankfully, usually the heirs tend to follow suit. Not all the time, so you've got to keep monitoring it. But the big thing is you're heading to end the struggle, and having to deal with people who are not supporters is a problem. Getting up this, you have to get 6 more supporters of your vassals, which can take a little while because there are several non-supporters. But having to deal with people who are detractors is arguably the hardest part. Non-Sunni faith, you have to conquer some land up here. It's not usually the end of the world. However, having to deal with people who are not supporters, a bigger problem. Thankfully, this guy out here is a supporter. This guy's a detractor. You could try and murder him. His heir, we don't know what he would be. Odds are a detractor. This was the big realm I had to conquer in 2 of my runs. Obviously, there are some people here who are detractors and stuff. The easy way is basically invade. Take them out, because they will not join your side. Theoretically, you could improve relations, attempt to join them, but since they're of a different religion, unless you manage to get an heir of your faith, they're never going to join your side. Okay, a couple more minor things, and then we'll jump forward in time on expansions and how to solve the whole problem. First off, you're going to probably want to change your capital as soon as this first war is done. I recommend moving it into Baghdad. Samara is okay, but there are two problems with it. The first major problem is it is a different religion and a different culture, meaning you can't steer the culture. The other option for your capital, Baghdad, is of your religion and of your culture. Makes it a lot easier to control what buildings you built. Take your realm priest, Iman, or whatever, our Grand Alama here, put him to convert Samara and then Anbar. Get it over and done with. Now, because you're a clan government, your collect taxes is less useful. It can be worth immediately starting to promote culture in Samara and Anbar, just so you unify your Maghrebi culture in this area. If you want, you could finish off all of them, but then you're diluting your culture. You already have a very large culture, by the way. Anyway, I recommend converting them so they don't revolt, and you can control what the culture is. So, not to spoil everything, but there will be a couple events as you play forward that will happen. You'll get a guy claiming he's descended from Muhammad or something, or he's got a claim on the Caliphate. He will appear. You can attempt to deal with him hostilely. I don't recommend it. Let him do his weird preaching and stuff. Eventually, he'll start a revolt down here in Basra. Assuming you've won this and you've maintained building up your men-at-arms. By the way, these guys, really good, especially if you base them in certain holdings and improve them. Early on, they're some of your best units. You can easily squash the revolt. It's mainly peasants. If need be, ally somebody in your realm of your cousin or something. I don't know. I don't remember where your cousins are. Anyway, if you find them, you can ally them like this. For example, this guy I would ally immediately. Solves the problem. He will then help you in those type of wars or other stuff. Civil wars. Preventing people from joining civil wars is a big thing. Keeping an eye on your factions to make sure that no major factions appear. Bribery. If someone's in a faction, the odds are they're your detractor, which is a nice, easy way to find them. Swaying them is good. Getting rid of this guy, though, solves a lot of problems, because usually he's involved in any faction, in my experience. Make sure that you have a good spy master. For example, this guy right now is a terrible spy master for you. He hates you. You could eventually convince him to join your side. It's possible. It's hard. It's worth doing if you can, because getting rid of anybody who's a detractor is good. But otherwise, get rid of him. Assign somebody else. Not this guy who also... Well, actually, he's actually a decent one because he wants a seat on the council. If you do put him in here, make sure you negotiate an alliance with him. Put him on there if you want to. Right now, he's considering a proposal. Stick him on there. Or, better yet, hire somebody at a lower rank with higher intrigue. Make sure they're on disrupt schemes. Otherwise, the odds are you will be murdered either by this guy or one of his supporters. Also, keep an eye on for fabricating claims on the Abbasid. It can happen. If you've got a good spy master and they're loyal, the odds are it won't happen. Other thing, turn your chancellor from foreign affairs to domestic affairs. You'll thank me later. It will basically make sure that your vassal's less likely to revolt. Up to 14. The biggest weakness of the Abbasids is internal domestic strife rather than external, excepting the Byzantines. Keep them happy. If you can, fight them. Thankfully, if they do declare war on you, they tend to declare war for this duchy here, Armenia. That is not part of the Abbasid realm, so you can freely lose that or your Cyprus territory. Let's think forward in time now. Let's assume we've won the war. Let's assume you've built up your realm. How and where do you expand? We've already taken care of the north by converting this guy to our faith and fixing his contract, which is important. The Saffarids over here, assuming you've murdered this guy or he's died. In my opinion, he tends to die a fair amount of the time. His heir is loyal to you, so you can ignore this. That has solved a lot of your problems. Obviously, the Egyptians are an issue. If they don't have an alliance, you've won the war, you've got a good amount of money, you've got superior troops, you're going to want to go to him and declare subjugation. You can declare one in your lifetime. It is worth using it on Egypt. It solves all the land you need for the Abbasids in this area, basically. These guys over here, you can usually convince to become your vassal once you border them. Just improve relations with them. Once your powerful vassals get up, he'll join. Don't worry about it. Either that or the Egyptian guy will conquer him. That will solve your problem on the Western Front. Arabia is an interesting one. So in Arabia, there's a lot of your faith, but there are some Abbadis. The Abbadis will not be persuaded to your side. Thankfully, assuming you've done a good job with fixing your powerful vassals, you get stronger. Over time, cultural acceptance will go up. You can usually vassalize your way through a decent amount of this, or you get fed up and you conquer it using your men-at-arms. Don't bother with the levies. The levies just pretty much die in the desert. If you're lucky, you can persuade a couple of these guys to join you, which is not that hard if you look at it. 23. Pretty easy to do, especially if you went to, say, diplomacy and you worked your way down to true ruler. You could easily vassalize all of Arabia. However, I don't necessarily recommend you go into diplomacy as your lifestyle. You're going to be fighting a couple wars early. Martial isn't bad, especially engineered for destruction. Once you get siege weapons, will help a lot. But the reality is, I find stewardship, focus on income, worth more. Get your centralization going. Start developing your realm capital after you've converted at least these two provinces here. Make Baghdad super rich. It's not hard to easily catch up and pass, say, Constantinople or Rome. They will get to I found about 35. I was around 40 something at that time. It's very powerful. The fact that you have Baghdad's House of Wisdom is amazing. It's one of the best buildings in the game. I can't think of another unique special building that's much better. It's really good. Plus your mosque up here in Samara, assuming I can click on it. Nope, can't click on it at all. It's also really useful as well for making money. It does make constructing buildings in Renowned easier. Now, assuming you have either gone diplomatic, taken over this area, or gone military, or you've invaded and conquered Egypt, where do you go from then? At that time, your starting ruler's probably dead. Hopefully, you have managed to get towards Harmonious. This guy tends to live for a long time unless he's murdered, thankfully. If he dies early, restart. It's not worth the grief of having to reconquer all your lands. Hopefully, you get a nice harmonious succession. You've got a good heir or two. Remember, you can always disinherit heirs if need be. It does, however, cost you house unity, so be very careful doing it. You may have to disinherit this child in particular early on. Other thing to remember is you need more spouses because you're Muslim. So marry some. Look around. You're going to want to find beautiful, smart, or Herculean people. For example, this lady is particularly good. Get her involved. Try and breed some better heirs. If you can't breed better heirs, you stick with this guy. You engage him to somebody similar and build up that way. You start off with several family members you should also send out to get married. Your sisters you should try and marry to your large lords or neighboring lords that are powerful. Get you that alliance. People who are detractors, getting them married to you helps a lot. Your brother should be sent out to marry women that are smart, intelligent, or others, so you can breed them into your main dynasty later on. Definitely put in a guardian for your heir. Don't make it you. You're terrible. Find somebody who's slightly better. For example, this guy right here. He's decent. He's going to die pretty soon, though. But if you manage to find somebody who is particularly good, like, say, the mother here, although the arrogant isn't nice, the other ones are decent. This one's a pretty decent one, or find someone better. Make sure they don't convert culture or anything. If you've got a lot of money, which you probably won't, you could try sending them to university, but that is very expensive. So, assuming we've dealt with all that, sorry to get distracted again, then the problem becomes this area. So the Dulafids and the Zayids will never convert to your religion. They will never get rid. Well, this guy is converted to your religion, but in my experience, he almost never will become a supporter of the Caliphate. If he does, great. You might be able to persuade him to join your side, but it's difficult. The odds are you're looking at his heir, who's a better chance to get to join the side. He might accept automatically. Because this guy is going to leave most of his land to that guy, that solves the problem of the Caliphate. Don't worry about it, or the Caliphate. The Zayed up here is going to involve a war. You should be able to do a holy war or just a conquest war. Thankfully, he's kind of isolated in terms of religion. Basically, no one's going to come to his aid. The Taurids, we've already talked about them a little bit. Once this guy dies, deal with the heir. You may have to do your second ruler conquest war. You do have another option to install supporter wars. I find it's usually better to do the other one. Installing supporters has the risk that then they die and their heir is a non-supporter, where if you conquer it, then they're in your realm. It's much easier to manage. This is a very easy area to conquer. Do be aware there is terrible supply up here and you can lose a lot of your troops. I lost far too many troops wandering through this. Tribal lands with unrest in a desert. Afterwards, these guys are supporters of you, so unless they've lost land, you have to find a way to get them to your faith a lot of the time, which can be difficult. An easy way to do it, if you can pull it off, is to try and offer guardianship. If you can find a way to get them to join your side, for some strange reason, hook, crook, murder, as long as they join your religion, you're in great shape. You can also demand submission. Now, this is a mechanic unique to this area, and you can use it otherwise. But you can just simply do demand submission, strong hook. Strong hooks are quite useful for persuading people to join your side. For example, a vassal with a strong hook, quite useful. However, if you're lucky enough to flip the side, or you use the strong hook to get their heir to your land to convert the religion, there's several ways to do it. You pretty much are going to have to conquer this land and maybe these ones. These, of course, are not Muslim, so it's even harder to interact with them. You can't demand submission. They're never going to convert. You're not going to get their kids. You're going to have to wipe these guys out. This area down here, don't really worry about it. I find they tend to get conquered by the Saffarids. If need be, just invade. They're peasants. They're really easy to take out. And once you've done all that, it's just a matter of waiting to meet the other requirements and then doing your ending. And then once you're done, you get a lot of bonuses. Don't worry too much about the religion. If need be, go to a learning lifestyle and build it up. The biggest struggle is controlling all the Abbasids and getting people to be of your faith, non-detractor. This one, assuming you play well and you're just constantly persuading people to your side, not that hard. Just be aware there is a chance that your supporters flip sides if they're persuaded. So trying to eliminate as many supporters or detractors of the Caliphate quickly will make your life a lot easier. Now, assuming you've done all of that, you have in I think it's 45 or 85 or something, so in the 900s, you have the Seljuks invading. By that point, you should have already finished the struggle. Also, by that point, you probably would have had the concession phase happen. Keep an eye on what causes building up of the concession phase. You can kind of keep an eye on what's bonusing it, but it will, by and large, go up each year. That's the big one. And the Seljuks just need to be beaten. Ally people, make sure you beat up the Byzantines prior to the invasion, otherwise they tend to take advantage of it. Also keep an eye on Makuria down here. You wouldn't expect this area to be that powerful, but several times they've tried to invade an empire that was this huge. Once you do, men-at-arms, if you can pull it off. Now, there is this very, very nice building over here. If you can get control of this, Station Men-at-Arms toughness is amazing. But this area up here, these are almost all mountain areas or forest areas. I found this to be the best area to fight the Seljuks. I only remember that because of the neat mountain. Fighting up in this area and trying to get them to attack you or attacking them when you're sieging is amazing. This might be one of the few areas it might be worth throwing down some buildings of your own, improving your vassals' lands so that they actually have better defenses. hill forts in particular are amazingly good at slowing down the Seljuks. And then it's just a matter of crushing them. Usually 3 or 4 battles, you win, and they're done. And at that point, you should be the largest, the most powerful empire in the game, and literally the world is your oyster. Don't forget to religiously convert. Don't forget to culturally convert if need be. And overall, just don't let anybody get too strong. Keep an eye on your family members, spread them out so they don't lose unity. And you should have a nice game, and you should be able to save the Abbasid Caliphate without too much trouble. Anyway, hopefully this guide has helped you. If it did, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your tips. Leave a tip that you didn't know before you watch this video in the comments. And I hope to see you guys all in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.